Hello and welcome to Hack It, another very special episode with two of the biggest legends, people we love, people all of us love, Dr. Deepak Chopra and Poonacha, here at Jugad, which is Foodhak's first and newest venture. It's our little baby. We've taken food as medicine concept now into restaurant dining. We're sitting right here on the launch event where Dr. Chopra is going to lead a meditation for peace on World Mental Health Day, which is today, 8th of October. So we thought we would take this opportunity and do a little informal podcast episode, just understanding links between longevity, integrative medicine, food as medicine, and both of your goals and dreams with life.
Amazing. Thank you, Sakshi. So maybe we should just have a banter here, right? Let's kind of figure out how to get started. So maybe we'll just give it to Deepak.
Yeah.
So Deepak, you've been kind of pioneering mind-body medicine. And the buzzword today is longevity and health span. Can you share your wisdom on how we can achieve the wisdom of age and the vitality of youth?
Yeah, right now, if you look at the demographic in the developed world, the fastest growing group of people is over the age of 100, the fastest growing demographic, which doesn't mean there are more centenarians than ever before, which there are, but it's the fastest rate of growth. Looking back a century ago, the average age of a person in the United States was 58 years old, 100 years ago. In the Roman Empire, it was 28 years old. So right now, this is the fastest growing population. The problem is that the last 10 years or so of life is where most people suffer, end up in nursing homes, on ventilators, pacemakers, chronic disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, heart disease, autoimmune illness, degenerative disorders. So it's not longevity per se that is important, it's health span. How can you live a long life in good health? Now, if you look at the biological basis of that, there's something called the Hayflick limit, which means a cell divides so many times and then it stops. And according to the Hayflick limit, if you didn't have chronic disease, then you should be able to live 120 in good health if you didn't have a chronic disease. So people don't die, most people don't die of old age, they die of disease, chronic disease. Only 5% or less of chronic disease is due to what are called fully penetrant genes mutations. And as we know, there's CRISPR and all these gene editing techniques coming. But even with that, that would affect only 4% of the population. 95% of even disease-related gene mutations are modifiable through epigenetics. So epi means above. Above the genes is a sheath of proteins called histones, and they respond to every experience you have: eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, elimination, sensory experience, but even more important, to thoughts, feelings, emotions, and even imagination changes your gene activity. But one of the things that changes it dramatically is food, diet. So if you have a diet that is anti-inflammatory, and remember more than 95% of the genetic information in our body is not human, it's microbial, and then you can change. Those microbes secrete things like serotonin, GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, which are neurotransmitters. And so if you have a diet that actually helps dysbiosis and decreases inflammation, things like, omega-3 fatty acids, which are found in multiple foods, green leafy vegetables, fermented foods, berries and cherries, that whole class of antioxidants, whole grains, and also, things that actually affect the microbiome directly, you can not only prevent these chronic diseases, but reverse them.
Maybe, Sakshi, maybe the leading question for you is this, right? Everybody knows about you went from Pfizer to SoftBank, and now you have your startup Foodhak, and now a restaurant, right? Can you share, like, what I love about from a foundation side? Everybody talks about eating well, conscious eating, conscious dining, but it's always expensive.
Yeah.
And what I love about what you're doing is really making it accessible. Can you share your vision of how everybody is going to benefit from the movement of from conscious dining and the foods you're kind of crafting right now?
I love this question because I feel that very few people understand what I am trying to do in its entirety, where I believe that food as medicine should be accessible by everybody on this earth, no matter what strata of the population you're in. Your health should be in your hands. And like Deepak just said, that food is a very, very big component of our lifestyle. I would argue, at least what I saw when I was looking at life sciences at SoftBank, I would say 80% of your lifestyle is controlled by your food because you are consuming something 3 to 5 times a day. It's a very high frequency item. The problem is there's no intelligence behind the food, right? There's no understanding behind the properties of food. Or, ingredient X can actually help reverse disease Y. There isn't that understanding because post-World War II, post-industrial revolution, we were just trying to feed mouths, right? Which was right at that time. But then we kind of forgot along the way, hold on a minute, the quality of these ingredients are just going down. No one is stopping this and saying, let us understand what exactly is in my food or what can really help me. We just forgot these natural medicinal foods along the way. We thought Ayurveda was hocus pocus, Eastern medicine was woo-woo, right? But actually, if you go into the clinical research, you find that there are some really good pieces of research validating Eastern medicine and principles of food as medicine like Ayurveda. You guys shared that so beautifully at Sages and Scientists. I will not forget that panel where, Deepak said, I took some of my friends to this retreat where we just meditated, we ate clean food, we had companionship, we had laughter, and a community over eating. We tested our telomeres, and our telomeres had lengthened by a significant amount, but nobody published that research because it's so controversial, right? So I mean,
It finally did.
right, yeah, finally. So I mean, that is the power, and it's all in our hands, and people need to know that. So you asked from Pfizer to SoftBank to Foodhak, and within Foodhak, we launched our online business, which was around COVID, where everybody was sort of still home and wanted things delivered to them, health and wellness. From there, we saw people in the post-COVID era, they left homes, they were all running about, back to their usual headless chicken sort of, life we have in these big cities. And then we saw a rise for our CPG line, like our snacking. So people just wanted to put something in their bag and off they go, and healthy snacking. And then from there, there came the question that, like, how do we now make these foods accessible or this knowledge accessible by Middle England, who may not be able to afford them? So we have been secretly cleaning up clinical data in the background, using doctors and using machine learning and building our own models where we understand on an ingredient level its properties, where it can help you and maybe it may harm you, right? So we said, let's make it for free, accessible by everybody. So we launched our Gen AI app. It's on the UK app stores. Now, anyone sitting anywhere, right, who has the time to cook, let's say they are pre-diabetic or they have cholesterol or they have a risk of Alzheimer's or whatever it is, they can now pull up the Foodhak app, they can create recipes that are designed for them, and they can achieve their longevity goals, right? And then from there, here we are 1 month into our newest venture. We got the challenge where somebody who loved our brand and product, who really believes in it, and actually it really helped him with various health issues. We got this opportunity where, the challenge was, can you take food as medicine into restaurant, gourmet, fine dining style Indian food? And can you make that lighter? And can you make that sustainable and locally sourced and dairy-free and gluten-free? And, we were convinced we can do it. So here we are, a month in, formally inaugurating the restaurant today. But the reviews that you see on Google, it's not me saying it. You can go check for yourself. We haven't been even telling people that things are dairy free or gluten. We haven't been doing that because we didn't want to take away the restaurant experience, and we believe that food can be cleaner and equally, if not better tasting, than the non-clean stuff out there. So we never told people anything. They ate the food, and the waiters gently afterwards said, "By the way, this butter chicken was actually dairy free." Or, "By the way, the fish is actually an Ayurvedic inspired dish." And after they consumed it and they liked it. And if you see the reviews on Google, everyone raves about the taste. So what we're trying to prove is that there is going to be a new future of food. A future where food is delicious, but at the same time, it's adding value to your health.
I think when I look at listening to you, I think from a foundation side, I think Deepak talks about, right? Don't tell people to stop something, get them to start something. And especially behavior change is very, very hard, right? If you like snack, you can't tell them don't snack. Give them a better option.
Yeah.
And you look at children, everybody else, people are snacking all the time. So if you can give them a better option, then probably they'll do it. If I love my butter chicken, I'm not going to give it up. Doesn't matter who tells me that until you give me a better alternative.
Yeah.
So I think from a behavior change perspective, I think this would make sense. At home, at work, at play, on the road, right? You need to have options where you kind of go in stream into a person's lifestyle. And I think that's one of the things, even with AI, Deepak, we are always looking and saying, at 2 o'clock in the morning, you have the dark night of the soul. Can you talk to Dr. Chopra and say, I have a question on my relationship. What do I do? And so we are heavily invested in getting AI into this particular conversation. So Deepak, maybe one of the things we could, we can maybe have this conversation on in closing is, what are rituals which you would connect with food? I'm reminded of the quote you talk about. You always have reverence for your food because food inherently has inherent miracle properties. And then the very act of eating becomes a celebration. I think it's one of your quotes. So,
In 1980, there was a study in Science which caught my attention. I was still just immediately after my residency and fellowship. And in this study, which came from Ohio State University, scientists were feeding rabbits a diet that was very high in cholesterol. And to their amazement, they found that there was one group of rabbits that, given the same diet as the other rabbits, this particular group was neither getting the hyperlipidemia nor the atherosclerosis or heart disease. And rabbits are very prone to heart disease if you give them a high cholesterol diet. After a lot of investigation, they found that this particular group that was not getting the high cholesterol levels, the technician who was feeding them, he would pet them and cuddle them and sing to them and coo, give them a lot of love, and then give them the same poisonous food. But now what happened is, as a result of their state of consciousness or awareness, they secreted different peptides in the brain that transfer the cholesterol into a completely different metabolic pathway. So then I realized that, mindful eating, celebrative eating, as in many cultures, including India, but India, its family gets together for meals. But so do they in Italy and Spanish cultures, where it's a celebration, where they feel gratitude, where they share the food, where they enjoy every bite. The metabolic activity of that food is quite different. But then it goes further, you see, because if you're gobbling a sandwich, particularly with all toxins and everything, driving a car at the same time, and on the phone with your earpods, doesn't matter what you're eating, it'll be going to a metabolic pathway that is not conducive to homeostasis or well-being. So as you know, I like all these gizmos that I wear, monitoring everything, including this CGM. So I look at my metabolic index. And the other day, somebody called me that I had actually encouraged to do the same thing. And she said, I was fasting for 8 hours and my blood sugar was still high, my metabolic index was still high. I tried 16-hour fast, it went even higher. So I said, we got her one of these ultra humans or whatever. And, every time she was struck in a traffic jam, she would get stressed. Her body would secrete cortisol, adrenaline, blood sugar would go up. So it's not just what you eat, it's what you're feeling at the moment.
Right.
If you're listening to music, it's different, depends on the kind of music you're listening, what kind of sleep you had the night, whether you're arguing with your spouse or not. All of that affects not just, so it's important what you eat, but how you feel when you eat. It should be a celebration, yes.
Beyond your plate. It's beyond you, just what's on your plate is everything which is around it, right? So this whole thing of conscious dining, which I think is what we're trying to kind of create this movement, a revolution.
And the restaurant.
And everything is ambience. We talk about genome, epigenome, microbiome, but the exposome, which is the environment which connects everything intrinsically, can change the biology. I guess from a neuroendocrinologist, did you figure out finally, is there like a tune which works good to secrete when you're eating your food?
Different for different people. Now, what you can do is, once you have biosensors, you can predict.
It's purely personalized then.
It's personal because, if you like a certain kind of music, say, I would discount, say, hard rock music, heavy metal music. But Beethoven, Mozart, Tchaikovsky, or ragas, but it may not work for everyone because, one of the things we know is that when you listen to music, you secrete opiates. And you can block the enjoyment of music by giving somebody Narcan, which is a narcotic antagonist. So actually music induces not only serotonin and GABA, but also opiates, which are immunomodulators. So you can actually target which person for what through biosensors. And it's also true about diet. You say, oh, spinach is good for me. But let's say you have the enzyme that you cannot metabolize oxalate, then spinach will give you kidney stones. So the more biosensing we can do, and that's where AI comes in, you will be able to, as I said, the future of well-being is personalized, it's predictive, it's participatory, it's a process, and it's preventive, and it's reversible. But now that we have all this technology, there's no experience that cannot be measured in the body. Right now we're having this conversation. People who are listening to us, if they're enjoying this conversation, then their neuropeptides in their frontal cortex and their limbic brain are being activated. And they're sitting somewhere in Nairobi listening to this. And their biology is going to be affected because there's no experience that doesn't have an epigenetic footprint.
So it's interesting. So I just thought of something. So I was thinking of the Maharishi effect. So Maharishi effect was people meditating, and they said hospital admission, traffic, all of that went down. Is there a Maharishi effect around conscious dining? If people actually consciously dined, could we bring down the mental health pandemic?
I think we could, but there's no study at the moment. The studies were done. The original studies were done in Washington, D.C. I was part of the person who designed some of the studies or helped design some of the studies. And yes, the US government was shocked because crime rate went down, hospital admissions, traffic accidents. Now there is a lot of other interesting data that well-being in the major buckets, corporate well-being or business well-being, which is the health of the business, which is a lot of criteria for that, social well-being, community well-being, financial well-being, and physical and emotional well-being are all correlated. And and they're measurable. So on a scale, and we are doing our own index right now.
Coming out in 2 months.
In 2 months. But the original index that I was part of creating that with Gallup, we could predict social unrest, violence, and even economy of a country or of a business just based on well-being. And I'd like to know in hindsight, tell people that we were able to predict the Arab Spring, We predicted the fall of Libya, all based on health and well-being. I've shared this story many times. I don't know if we should go into detail about the fall of Libya because we predicted it. And, I even had Gaddafi's son in my class in Kellogg, but it was too late because we had already predicted it. And within 3 weeks of that class, they were both dead, and the revolution had taken place. And it was based on well-being measures. Well-being is the most important predictor for the success of a business, for the success of a community, for the success of a nation. Of course, individuals we know.
Wow.
So, Sakshi, taking it home, what is your, having listened to this and with your vision for Jugad, what's your plan to take this beyond? Obviously, it's an experience here in Camden Yards, but what's your vision for Jugad?
I think what I find is that no one's really taking this very hard problem of nutrition head on. And that's why I left SoftBank to do it, because I feel like someone has to produce the food that surrounds you and actually gives you a choice so that well-being can be better, so that nations can be better. Someone has to then make sure that it's priced appropriately, where it's accessible. Right? So, for example, my vision is when you walk into a coffee shop, today what do you see? You see processed carbs and sugars, right? Where, with your coffee. You're a young parent, you haven't slept because your child was awake at night, you are working, you've gone into a coffee shop to pick up a breakfast. Poor you. You're not even given a choice. It's not even a fair level field because all you have is just processed sugars and a coffee, right? Which you're like, okay, look, I'm looking for it, but there's nothing. Okay, I tried, there's nothing there. I'm going to take this croissant and the coffee. Next thing you know, my pancreas, glycemic index is shot up. And this is, I'm just talking about, unfortunately, this is life in New York, London, Miami, Delhi, all these big cities, right? Where all these working professionals are trying to build a life for themselves and a future for their kids. Right? They just don't have a choice. My future, you ask, what is my vision? What's my goal? I want to give them a choice. You walk into a coffee shop, you will have a choice between a processed sugary breakfast, and you will have a choice between a Foodhak breakfast. And they will be priced equally. And now you have the choice. You want to be unhealthy and die early with disease, you do that. You want to be healthy and live longer and have a happy life with your grandkids, you do that. Right? I just felt that like nobody was creating foods, which were medicinal in nature. And so, that's why I kind of launched Foodhak, the restaurant. And I also realized that, look, Dr. Chopra is all geared up with his devices, right? Like we are living in a world with technology, moving forward. So I just felt that I needed to also create a digital ecosystem, which is always with you in your pocket. So let's say Poonacha is traveling or Deepak's going to Delhi tomorrow, right? Imagine if he had an app where it tells him what to eat from Delhi, right? So constantly there's a companion with you, at least a nutritionist with you, guiding you, nudging you to make that healthier choice. So my vision is this digital and physical ecosystem of food as medicine, where there's an assistant out here helping you, nudging you to make healthier food choices. And by the way, healthier also for the planet. Like we use a lot of millets. Way before, UN and Prime Minister started talking about millets now as a sustainable crop. It uses like 1,000% less water as an input to create the same output. And actually happens to be lower in glycemic index compared to wheat, right? Most of the production happens in Asia and Africa. Can be priced at parity with wheat. So why not use millets, right? So, the vision is a healthier you, a healthier planet, and hopefully, well-being, like healthier well-being individuals means lesser crime, lesser wars, and the world is hopefully a better place. That's kind of the big idea.
A couple of ideas, by the way. Right. Now that we're in this restaurant, right, if you could create a virtual representation of this restaurant, right, including everything, the lighting, the atmosphere, the music, the smells. If you could also include body type, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, because now you can measure those epigenetically. Right. You don't have to, or we can do a very simple questionnaire that says, this is the food for you at this time, and this you will not only enjoy, but this is the ambiance. Then you replicate Jugad as virtual restaurants in the metaverse, but then people can license that to create a real restaurant as well. So that's one idea for you.
You're talking about, remember the whole house, the Chopra verse?
Something like that, where we can have restaurants of enlightenment. So, and also, by the way, this combination of Vata Pitta, there are 9 body types, strictly speaking, various combinations. And it takes a very simple test to do: are you surviving? Are you adapting? Are you thriving? Are you flourishing? Are you in flow? Have you awakened? You can actually look at this in a much broader perspective, which is measurable. Right now, you can measure heart rate variability is probably the best sign to see whether you're stressed or you're sympathetic. But now we also have galvanic skin response, looking at, oxygenation in the blood, so many things by simply wearing a ring. And then if you have AI to look at that, you can personalize every meal in a restaurant like this, including the body type. People say, I eat everything I want to eat, I don't get weight. Other people say, all I have to do is look at food and I gain weight. Yeah. And there is a psychophysiological reason for that. And you can figure that out, So there's a bright future for food as medicine.
Love that.
I think on that note, Deepak, I want to basically go back to something we used to talk about a long time. So you always said we got to reduce chronic low-grade inflammation. And we said inflamed gut, inflamed brain, inflamed society.
Inflamed world, war, terrorism.
So I think it all starts in the gut, and the gut-brain axis, the vagus nerve. So with that, I think this is a fun conversation. We can go on for hours.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, but I think this is great. I have a question for both of you. So obviously you both don't need any introduction, so I never wasted any time to introduce the both of you. But Poonacha here runs the Chopra Foundation, and together you're working on Cyberhuman. Dr. Deepak Chopra is on a mission to help the world. Now, I want to understand from both of you, what is your vision? And what is your vision?
We have the same vision. It is reach a critical mass of the world. In our mind, it's 1 billion people, for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. We think we can do it. And I think with both online and offline communities, it's just that people haven't paid attention to the science. But scientific facts actually don't do everything. People have to be emotionally and spiritually charged in order to change behavior. So I don't believe in motivation. I say motivation is very weak, but inspiration is the way. The word inspiration means to be in spirit. Once you're inspired, there's no going back. It's like a child that's born, can't return to the womb. So we want that critical mass of inspiration with every demographic, whether it's business, whether it's politicians, last category. But, we start with business and we start, with groundswell in the population. And that's, how it happened with me also in academia. In the beginning, nobody listened. But then when the groundswell happened, then academia got very interested because they realized if they didn't keep up with what people wanted, they would be out of date. I went to medical school in India, the All India Institute, but then immediately after I graduated, I left. And then for 23 years, I was in Harvard, Tufts, BU, all these 3. And then I was very fortunate enough to get a fellowship with Seymour Reichland, who was then the head of the Endocrine Society. By the way, last week he was in New York, 101 years old, and he still teaches. He still argues with me about the heart problem of consciousness. And if he catches a snake in his garden, he dissects the brain to look for neuropeptides. So with him, and there was another person, Candice Pert, who's no longer with us. But, one day we were looking at these neuropeptides, and she said, these are the molecules of emotion. And I said, absolutely, you hit it on the nail. So this is what got me into even Ayurveda, because, see, modern science now they talk about quantum mechanics, they talk about, but modern science is not about experience, it's about measurement. Ayurveda is not a quantum science, it's a qualia science. You change the experience, you change the biology, and so we metabolize experience. You don't metabolize measurements or quanta, you metabolize qualia, feelings, emotions, and what's happening in your body. So, once you understand Ayurveda at a deep level, you realize even the body is a field of awareness. We can talk about that forever. But, when we first did the study, Elizabeth Blackman, who won the Nobel Prize for telomerase, she knew nothing about Ayurveda or medicine. So we got her to do the test. Nobel laureate. 40% increase in telomerase. Nobody believed it. But then finally we got it published in Nature, translation, British Journal, and then now replicated.
I think that's so powerful. I want to just do a quick recap on your story. So you were in, deep into Western medicine and all these amazing schools in America. What got you into this integrative medicine field? What was that pivotal moment?
Complicated. The pivotal moment was meeting Maharishi and understanding Ayurveda. But at the same time, very few people know this. I used to smoke cigarettes. I used to drink a lot on Saturdays. I remember Fridays. I remember one incident where I put a pacemaker actually in a patient, put him on a ventilator, and then went outside to smoke a cigarette. And I felt so disgusted with myself, and I knew everything was right. And I said, how am I going to help my patients if I don't do it myself? So that was a trigger. And then, when I met Maharishi, he introduced me to some amazing scholars, Ayurvedic scholars, and Triguna. And I kind of wandered the world with him as his assistant, all over the world. Yeah, we came to Britain, met Prince Charles, the Queen Mother, name it. We went everywhere in the world. And he was such an amazing doctor, and he could cure a lot of diseases, but he could also diagnose by looking at a person and feeling their pulse. But now we can do that with VR also, or even just regular videos. You can do facial recognition, link it to vagal tone or tone of voice. So even that which Ayurvedic specialists took years to specialize in, now we'll be able to measure with VR and AI. So it's come along.
Yeah, I mean, AI is like now disrupting the whole field of radiography and all that, right? It's more accurate than even human beings. So it's quite amazing. Wow, what an episode. We have to just hope and pray to the Lords that you keep going through London and we keep stopping you here at this restaurant, building a Sangha.
Why don't you bring the chain, virtual and real, globally?
Yeah. I've got some homework to do. We're taking this into the metaverse. This was so inspiring. I think my vagus nerve is definitely...
Restaurants of enlightenment.
Yes, but I think it's so inspirational to watch you talk about technology, like defying age. I always say Deepak reminds me of that movie, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, where every time I see him, he looks younger. He's got an even better and positive vibe. He's got, something more that I can be inspired by. So much so that actually today's dining experience is all very authentically somehow just came together, but it's an ode to Deepak. Every single name card has one of the 21 affirmations of abundance that Deepak leads a meditation on, and I've been doing it every morning, and it's been really helping me. It increases my happiness index, helps me cope through the day, and the music list is curated with Deepak's music, so it's going to be a truly conscious dining experience. Poonacha is going to do a ritual for us. Deepak's going to do a meditation for us. We're going to remind ourselves that, these riots and things that happen in the UK, these are linked with well-being, improve the well-being of the population, fight situations like these, and just live in a happier world. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time and your generosity of being here.
Thank you, Sakshi. Very good.
Thank you for listening to Hack It. I hope you enjoyed the insights and stories that we shared today. Are you hungry for more? Follow us on Instagram at The Foodhak. That's a hack without a C. Or subscribe now to be the first to hear about our next episode when it drops. See you next time.